Bears family, this is huge. Something absolutely seismic just happened in the Chicago Bears front office that's going to change everything you thought you knew about our timeline, our ambitions, and Ryan Poles' willingness to make franchise-altering moves that most general managers wouldn't even dream of attempting. I've been covering this team for years. I've seen aggressive moves, I've seen bold trades, but what I'm about to reveal to you is on a completely different level. A move so audacious that when the news broke, I had to verify it 3 times before I believed it was real. Welcome back to the Bears News Fan Report, your exclusive home for the most accurate, most detailed, and most insightful coverage of our beloved Chicago Bears. What I'm about to share isn't speculation. It isn't a rumor from some anonymous Twitter account. This is verified information about a transaction that's going to send shockwaves through the entire National Football League and transform our defense overnight. We're talking about adding a player who has been named to 5 Pro Bowls, a player who has won Defensive Player of the Year, a player who offensive coordinators lose sleep over when they see him on the opposing sideline. Stay with me through every single word of this because the details of how this deal came together, what we gave up to make it happen, and what it means for our Super Bowl chances this season is a story you absolutely cannot miss. Here at the Bears News Fan Report, we don't chase clicks with fake drama. We don't sensationalize for views. We deliver facts, we provide context, and we give you the insider analysis that helps you understand the strategic brilliance of what's happening in Hollis Hall right now. So let me take you inside the war room and explain how Ryan Poles just pulled off what might be the most significant trade in Chicago Bears history. We've been watching this team transform before our eyes this season. Caleb Williams has exceeded every expectation, showing the poise, the arm talent, and the football IQ that made him the #1 overall pick. Ben Johnson has brought an offensive creativity and innovation that we haven't seen in Chicago in decades. Our offense is explosive, our young talent is developing rapidly, and suddenly this franchise that was supposed to be rebuilding is actually competing at a level that nobody outside of our building anticipated. But there was one glaring weakness, one area where we knew we needed to improve if we were going to make a legitimate playoff push and potentially compete for a championship. Our pass rush has been inconsistent. Our ability to generate pressure on opposing quarterbacks has been sporadic. And while we have some promising young pieces, we didn't have that elite, game-wrecking presence on the edge that championship defenses require. Ryan Poles recognized this deficiency, and instead of waiting until next offseason to address it through the draft or free agency, he decided to act now. He picked up the phone, he started making calls, and he targeted the one player who could single-handedly transform our entire defensive identity. The negotiations were complex, the asking price was steep, and there were moments when it seemed like the deal might fall apart. But Poles persisted, he stayed aggressive, and he ultimately convinced the Cleveland Browns to do something that seemed impossible just weeks ago. The Chicago Bears have acquired Myles Garrett. Let me say that again so it fully registers. Myles Garrett, the 3-time first-team All-Pro, the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year, arguably the most dominant defensive end in football, is now a Chicago Bear. This isn't a depth piece. This isn't a rotational player. This is a generational talent who changes everything about how opposing offenses have to game plan against us. Garrett has recorded double-digit sacks in 6 of his 7 NFL seasons. He commands double and triple teams on every snap, and he possesses the rare combination of elite speed, power, and technique that makes him virtually unblockable in one-on-one situations. The deal itself required significant assets, and I want to be transparent about what we gave up, because understanding the cost is important for evaluating whether this trade makes sense long-term. The Bears sent their 2026 first-round pick, a 2026 third-round pick, and a 2027 second-round pick to Cleveland, along with agreeing to restructure Garrett's contract to make the cap numbers work for both organizations. That's a substantial price, no question about it. But when you have the opportunity to acquire a player of this caliber, a player who is still in his prime at 29 years old, you have to be willing to pay premium value. Ryan Poles clearly believes that our championship window is open right now, and he's willing to invest the assets necessary to maximize that window while we have Caleb Williams on his rookie contract. Think about what this means for our defense immediately. Myles Garrett lines up on one edge, And suddenly, every offensive coordinator in the NFL has to completely redesign their protection schemes. You can't leave him one-on-one. You can't chip him with a running back and hope for the best. You have to dedicate significant resources to slowing him down, which means other players on our defense are going to have favorable matchups. Montez Sweat on the opposite edge is going to see fewer double teams. Our interior defensive linemen are going to have cleaner rushing lanes. And our linebackers are going to have more opportunities to make plays because quarterbacks won't have time to go through their progressions. This is how elite defenses are constructed. You add a player so dominant that he elevates everyone around him. The tape on Myles Garrett is absolutely ridiculous. Last season alone, he recorded 14 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, and 42 quarterback pressures. Despite facing constant double teams and offensive game plans specifically designed to neutralize, he wins with speed. He wins with power. He has an arsenal of pass rush moves that would make any defensive line coach jealous. And most importantly, he plays with a relentless motor that never stops. There are players who take plays off, who coast when they're tired, who disappear in big moments. Myles Garrett is not one of those players. He brings maximum effort on every single snap. He performs at his best when the stakes are highest. And he has the kind of competitive fire that matches perfectly with the culture that Matt Eberflus and Ben Johnson are building here in Chicago. Now let's talk about the broader implications of this move. By acquiring Garrett, the Bears are making a clear statement to the rest of the league and to our own locker room. We're not rebuilding anymore. We're not asking for patience. We're competing for championships right now. That message is going to resonate with Caleb Williams, who now knows that management is doing everything possible to surround him with elite talent. It's going to resonate with our veteran players, who see an organization that's willing to be aggressive and make win-now moves. And it's going to resonate with free agents around the league, who will look at Chicago as a legitimate destination when they're making decisions about where to sign. The financial aspect of this deal is also worth examining because it shows how sophisticated Ryan Poles has become in managing the salary cap. Garrett's restructured contract spreads out the cap hit over multiple years, allowing us to remain competitive in future free agency periods while still adding elite talent now. We're not mortgaging our future. We're not going all in and sacrificing long-term flexibility. We're making a calculated investment that improves our roster immediately while maintaining the ability to continue building through the draft and free agency. That's championship-level roster management. That's the kind of strategic thinking that separates good general managers from great ones. Our defense was already showing improvement this season, ranking in the middle of the pack in most statistical categories and demonstrating real growth from young players like Gervin Dexter and Austin Booker. Adding Myles Garrett doesn't just make us better, it potentially makes us elite. We're talking about a defense that could legitimately carry us deep into the playoffs, a unit that can win games when our offense has an off day, a group that opposing teams will genuinely fear when they see us on their schedule. The impact on Caleb Williams' development cannot be overstated either. When you have an elite defense that can get stops, that can create short fields with turnovers, that can protect leads in the fourth quarter, it takes enormous pressure off a young quarterback. Caleb doesn't have to be perfect on every drive. He doesn't have to score 35 points to win games. He can manage the offense, take what the defense gives him, and trust that our defense will make the plays necessary to secure victories. That's the formula for developing young quarterbacks successfully. And Ryan Poles just gave Caleb the defensive foundation that's going to accelerate his growth exponentially. So here's my analysis of what this blockbuster trade means for the Chicago Bears moving forward. We just went from a promising young team with playoff potential to a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Myles Garrett is that impactful. His presence is that transformative. And the message Ryan Poles just sent to the entire NFL is that the Chicago Bears are back, and we're not waiting for anyone's permission to compete for championships. This is the kind of move that defines eras, that gets remembered for decades, that becomes part of franchise lore when we're talking about the championship teams of the 2020s. I'm fired up. I'm excited. And I genuinely believe we just witnessed the move that's going to change the trajectory of this franchise. Now I want to hear from you, the heartbeat of this organization, the fans who have stuck with this team through every up and down. How do you feel about giving up multiple draft picks to acquire Myles Garrett? Do you think this trade makes us legitimate Super Bowl contenders this season? What are your expectations for our defense now that we have arguably the best pass rusher in football? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below because this community thrives on intelligent discussion, and I genuinely want to know how Bears Nation is processing this franchise-altering move. And listen, if you want to stay on top of every development, every transaction, every strategic move that impacts our beloved Chicago Bears, you absolutely must subscribe to this channel right now and turn on notifications. The Bears News Fan Report is your trusted source for breaking news, detailed analysis, and insider information that you simply won't find anywhere else. We're here every single day, bringing you the content that matters most, the analysis that makes sense, and the passion that matches your own. Bear down, and let's go win this championship together.